Hey, it's 4 o'clock, it's Friday. Welcome to the Nutmeg Tavern. It has been a busy week, so come on in, have a seat. I think there's some more tables over on that side. I am your host, John Townsends, and I am joined here in the Nutmeg Tavern by Ryan behind the bar.
Hello.
As well as all the other guests that you can't see on the far side over there. Also, on the other side of the time vortex, Aaron is on the console. He's Mr. Technical. He is making it happen today.
Trying to.
So there you go. And Kyle is, he's our time vortex liaison. He's the person who communicates to us through the time vortex, so you can talk to me through him there in the chat box.
Hello.
Okay, so audio sync issues.
Audio sync issues. Okay.
Let's see what's going on here. It's where you had it.
Yeah.
Maybe try refreshing and see what happens.
Yeah. There's a time slip sometimes between audio and visual when it goes through the vortex.
Yes, that usually happens.
Yeah, and it could be the solar wind or something is affecting it. So
Lots of things.
yes, lots of things.
Lots of moving parts here, everybody. Lots of moving parts.
Did we have anything incredible we need to talk about that happened this week? No.
No.
We've just been working hard. I have had a very exciting week working on different things, not necessarily research again, like business things and other stuff, just chock full. And I'm just so happy to come into the tavern on a Friday afternoon. It's like, okay, we can relax in a different kind of way. And so we're gonna have fun today. Boy, Ryan, we had some nice folks that were here from Centerville. So shout out to the Centerville folks.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Are they called Ohioans or Ohioites? Ohioans? I think.
You got me. You got me.
Ohio-anders.
And I want to say howdy to everyone who sort of shows up every Friday. You know, we were talking to the Centerville folks about that, and they're like, well, every Friday, that's what we do. Mom's probably out there right now. My mom watching the live stream. Of course, Rick and Hillary and Frank and Carol and all these other folks that just are there every Friday, along with, all the normal folks that we kind of, hear about in the chat space. So thank you all for coming in today. I had a thing that I really wanted to say, and then it blew right out of my head. Dang, I hate that when that happens. So let's get a couple of questions, and then let's start on the topic.
Okay. Don't have many questions yet.
Good,
but
that's fine.
Please ask away, people. First one says, what were passenger ships like for both classes of people?
Yeah, so big difference. I mean, there are some people that will be passengers in a very sort of high class sense. If you get a ride, not necessarily you hear about it so much coming to America, but especially like going into India on an East Indiaman ship, and they had fairly nice cabins for passengers. Some ships were like that, and then most of the time people are traveling. They're traveling in a very, very primitive situation, like indentured servants and other people that are getting passage for a very, very low sum of money. Boy, that was a very, very time-consuming. It's like, imagine 6, 8, 9 weeks. Sometimes, if your ship has really bad weather, it might take months, 4 months to get here instead. And so you'll read about different accounts about, the ships just being forced back and back if the weather just isn't right, and really bad situation. But, there's those folks that are traveling, and the conditions are just utterly primitive and very miserable. I'm not sure what to say more than that because I haven't read about too many. You read about them, say, middle or higher class folks moving back and forth for business or, situations, but you very rarely hear them talking about their voyage per se. So they don't really speak to it. They just like, oh, I went there, There is, if you read Henry Fielding's Voyage to Lisbon, he spends all his time really talking about waiting to get on the ship and travel and he's traveling in very, very high luxury. So, next question.
Let's see. Do you want me to ask cat questions, or do you want me to save
We can
those?
try one. I mean, I don't have a lot of cat answers. The reason why we have a cat topic today is because there's a lot of fun cat artwork that I wanted to cover. But go ahead.
Okay. Were there ship's cats, and did they weather the sea well?
I believe so, but I haven't. I'm trying to think of where I've actually locked into reading about them that's not fiction. And so I can't give you an exact answer. I'm pretty darn sure, but I don't have any reference that I could give you on cat passengers.
Okay. Well, because you can't answer that one, I don't know if we can.
Well, go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay.
Try it
All right.
anyway. Stump me. I don't mind.
Okay. When did ship cats become popular, and do you think ship cats had anything to do with the lessening of plague outbreaks?
Well, I think it would be it's a great theory, and I'd love to see that worked out. But I don't know. You read about them a lot more in the 19th century, but that probably is because they're writing more about that sort of travel in the 19th century than the 18th century. I mean, they're traveling just as much in the 18th century, but the literature is very different in the 18th century than it is by the time you get to the 19th century. Just like art changes, literature changes a lot. So let's go for the topic.
Yeah,
Let's
I
go.
was just thinking that too.
Are you ready for this, Aaron?
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of cat pictures that we're going to start bringing up. I'm going to give most of them are big pictures, and then we're going to zoom in on the cat and look at the ways that they interpret cats in art. Some of these are 18th century, a few of them are earlier, and a very few might be like early 19th century. Go ahead, Aaron. Family portrait. And we get to see that the cat is part of the family in this one. I love this one. This is probably 1790s. And you can see that cat there doesn't look too upset. This is one of the calmer cats. Go ahead, Aaron. You could see they're feeding the cat in this one. And do we do a close-up of this cat? Yeah, it's... Yeah, I'm trying to. Sometimes you can kind of judge by the painting about what the artist thinks about cats in this one. Go to the next one. There's a cat down here in the corner, and this is the classic, pretty content, but this cat definitely looks like it. I think it's supposed to actually reflect the mood of the woman above it, and you see this a couple of different times. Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah, this was just checking it out. Go ahead. Yeah, the standard kind of stripy gray cat. Speaking of gray cats, we got our own cat visitor. Andromeda came in. This one's supposed to be the last picture, so let's just keep. Well, no, I'll just cover it now while I'm at it. This painting doesn't have a cat in it. But the reason why is because this is a Cry of London person who's going through the streets, and she's selling cat and dog food. It's the thing she's saying. That's all right. The thing that she's saying is something like livers for dogs and lights for cats. And the lights of an animal would be things like the lungs. So she's selling offal for people to feed their pets in town. A very playful cat in this one. It's interesting when you go looking through these art pieces with cats. You'll see when you're digging for different kinds of paintings. You'll see dog paintings and you'll see cat paintings, and most of the time it's either one or the other. You see a cat or a dog, and usually when you see cats and dogs together, they're fighting. Here we have a cat and the dog isn't even paying attention. Here's another. And this one I'll get close up on. Here's the dog, there's the cat, but if you look close at that cat, it's almost got more lively, kind of piercing red, strange eyes than all the other animals, or or even the people in the room. But a weird kind of orange cat. Go ahead. Here we go. Now, cats are usually mischievous many times in this one, and they almost always show up in this sort of a setting. Here is a fishmonger's stall, and there are the cats, and boy, those are some...
they're tearing it up.
Yeah, they're tearing it up. They've got some food. They're stealing it. They're fighting about it, and they're very grumpy-looking cats, almost like a wild cat. Go ahead. I'm just confused by this painting. A lot of thoughtfulness going in here. There's a interesting looking cat that probably looks like the minute that kid grabs it, it's gonna come back and dig into that child. Go ahead. So this person's looking at this woman's new shoes, but check out what's going on in the background. Classic cat stealing food in the kitchen. You'll see that a lot. Sometimes you'll see dogs doing that. Go ahead. I like this painting just because it's a neat painting for the time period. You generally don't see paintings like this. Go ahead. And there's the cat sort of sitting by the old lady and watching everybody else.
Trying to get the cat away so you didn't unplug that cable.
This painting I ran into, very, very interesting. Has a look to it that's cartoony.
Kind of looks like an Edward Gorey.
It does. It does look like a Gorey. And there's all these symbols of death. The woman's actually pointing to someone who died, the painting of someone who's dying, and there's these signs of mortality. And there's these two cats on the floor, which I thought was a strange thing to add into this painting. Go ahead. And then in the corner of that painting there's this dog that looks like, I think it's like trying to rip up that piece of fabric, and it looks guilty already. Go ahead. This one is like a picture we would take today, isn't it? Like you're taking a photograph of something. I like that picture. Go ahead. Yeah, and not a normal way that artists would. The cat looking at the artist, very interesting. Not typical of a painting in this time period. Yeah, this one's just a calico cat sitting in the corner, probably waiting for...
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I don't know if there was a close-up on that one. Okay. Check this one out, though. I love this painting, one of the first ones we put on Sifting the Past. Classic cook there in his kitchen, and there's a cat under the table, and it has, I think... Could you back up? You probably can't.
Well,
that's all right.
I need to set up a hotkey.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
I believe it's stolen a bird. I think that there might be an empty cage, and the cat has the bird, and
Here,
also, let's see. Yeah, see, there's an empty bird cage up there.
He got that bird.
Yeah, his bird got away. They like to put little stories,
It's a regular like Sylvester and Tweety moment.
Yeah, except
the original.
The cat won. Go back to and check out the guy's got tied shoes. He can't afford buckles. So go ahead. This cat obviously is looking for its next meal. It's going to steal one of those. I didn't think the artist did that good a job. It did a great job with the fish, but the cat...
Yeah, the fish look great. The cat, the perspective is like...
Or like somebody else added the cat later.
Yeah,
right. Debbie just asked, who's the artist with the woman in the black cat?
Do you want to go back to that one?
Yeah, but I don't know who it is. I'll have to... Okay. That's something I'll have to dig up for you. Folks.
Oftentimes he knows the artist off right away. So.
Yeah, I pretty much always know it. No, I don't. This cat is
Having a great time.
like not. No, okay. No, it's all right. I think that cat tells its whole story. Gray stripy cat, and he's eating some fish guts.
That's a pretty grisly picture.
It is. It is, and they're big fish.
Yeah.
Oops, that's a replay. So
That
keep.
might be the end.
Is it? Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe. Okay. Well, there's the end. Lots of fun cat pictures as we were digging through the artwork, and it's always kind of strange. You know, you'll be looking through art, and when you start to look for something specific, generally you can't find it, right? And then you'll dig and you'll dig, and then you'll stop looking for it, and a week later it pops up in every single painting that you go and research in. Although cats, that was a fun one. I think it's interesting how artists will throw those in, and it's kind of funny. For a lot of years, probably the first 30 years of the catalog. What catalog number are we on now? 40?
Yeah, 40 or 41.
Something like that. Anyway, for about 30 years or even 35 years of the catalog, we had artwork on the front of the catalog instead of photography. And it was a long time tradition that we would always have a cat on the cover.
Like an Easter egg.
Yeah, like an Easter egg cat that showed up on the cover. But now we have photographs, so no more cats.
I think it's funny that one painting was essentially a memento mori
Yeah.
painting, and there are cats in it.
Yeah.
Do we need to do some donations real quick
Mm-hmm.
before we move on?
Let's
Or
do it.
Keep going on with the topic. Thanks everyone who has donated. We really appreciate
yes.
Yeah.
Gaslight Studios, thank you, says, welcome to the bloody age of the guillotine. He's got looks like a French dude. Joseph Denise, your videos are therapy to me while at work. I tried your steak fried and ale recipe and it was wonderful. I hope you had a chance to visit Old Town Alexandria, Virginia. I love the history of my town. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Goofus Maximus, what about polydactyl cats? Cats with extra toes in the 18th and 19th century. Thank you. Patricia Dahl, thank you. You have any tips for little kids for reenacting? Max are cool, thank you. Could you say cat ship 3 times fast? You probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't want to get flagged. Helen D, thank you. What were toys and or board games like during the 18th century? By the way, we missed the very beginning of the live stream. John, what is in your glass? Speed and Style Tony, thank you. Cats are hard enough to photograph. I can't imagine them holding still for a painting. Meow, thanks for the cat art. And then Michael Clace, what items did you provide for the show turn? That's all I got right now. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Alexandria sounds like a great place to visit. I haven't been in that historic district of Alexandria, so it does sound great. And it is one of those things that shows up over and over.
Yeah.
Like if you read the Cresswell Journal, he's there. And, so many, it's a lot of history there. Polydactyl cats, talk about hard to research. I have no idea. Although one of our favorite cats, long gone, had mitten paws. It was a cool cat. Kids, Ryan, what do you think?
I don't think that's difficult. I mean, kids are interested in everything and they want to help. So it depends on the age, of course. I mean, there's that, like, I don't know, they hit 11 or 12 and start to, like, not be as interested in things that you want them to be interested in. But take them to an event, dress them out, and they'll have fun.
Yeah, there you go. It's not that much work. Toys and board games, and they did have board games. They had simple ones, things like checkers, Nine Men's Morris, Fox and Geese. There were also the cats just
where'd that cat go?
crashed.
It's a fur carpet right
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna try
exactly.
to pass that cat to you.
Good luck with that. They also had little simple board games that had like little trails, and you'd move pieces around them. And
Try to pose for a second so I can get a
okay,
sweet cat.
screenshot cat. Come on, look up there. Where
Yeah,
are you
look-
looking, Kat?
Yeah, look. That's it. That's fine. I got it.
She says, I want to lay down.
See, it's not difficult to take a photograph of a cat.
No, it's
Yeah.
simple.
Just clawing John the whole time.
There were lots of fun little games for kids, though. Hoops and sticks and things like lawn darts. But we don't have those today. But marbles. Some fun kid games in this time period. I don't know exactly what we sold to turn. A lot of little things.
Yeah.
You've watched it more than I have.
Yeah, and I know that we did a lot of things that you'll see like in the tavern scenes, mugs, pictures, that kind of thing.
Right.
I know we did, not for main characters, but for side background characters, we did like some continental coats and that sort of thing. Other clothing items. Yeah, we did quite a bit for them, but past those specific things, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I didn't deal with the order specifically, so.
I think that was before Kyle was
Yeah,
here.
you weren't shipping any.
We did ship some stuff when I first started, but it was around that time.
Yeah.
The thing that's been more popular recently has been Outlander,
Yeah.
and Kyle will probably know more about that.
Yeah.
than any of us.
And the drink. Well, here is my typical either water or tea. I think this is just water. And I've got just a little bit of Madeira, which is one of my favorite period, wines to drink.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.
Yep. I like it. Okay, we got those. We are ready for Kyle.
Okay. Did ship's galleys have Dutch ovens, or did they use something else?
They had their own sort of oven thing that was going on. They tended to be, most of the cooking was coppers, boilers, so that you would have a way to cook those things. An oven-like structure would only be used in officers' cooking, and so those are going to be probably a sheet metal affair that works with that. I have not seen that many period ship's galleys. I would love to research into that and get closer. Go ahead.
What was speech of the 18th century like? I've heard that they use words that are not very well known today, and ones that we do know in a different way.
Now everybody's got a cough.
Yeah.
This is like you started like hiccups or something.
Sorry, guys.
I'm out of here.
It's all right.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you
We're
next
feeling great. I'm sorry. What was the topic again?
Speech.
Speech. Speech.
Whew, not cats.
Speech of cats.
Speech.
Speech of cats.
It's like
How
coughing.
did cats speak to us in the 18th century?
No. Digging on to the speech thing, the great part about speech, and the thing that really helps us understand speech is something that is a twist of, kind of sort of backwards today. We have, we're lucky enough to have recordings of everybody talking, right? So we know how different people talk. We don't have recordings of people in the 18th century talking, except we do, kind of, because in the 18th century, they did not spell like we do. We have standardized all spelling. We tell people they're wrong if they get some letter out of place or spell it like it sounds, right? But in the 18th century, that wasn't necessarily true. The earlier you go and the more sort of less educated you find people, they spell exactly like they think the word sounds. And so we can understand how different things were spoken by the way they spelled their words. And it really helps us kind of get to the idea of, oh, this is the way they actually said this word, because of course they spelled it all wrong. Now they spelled it like they would say it. And sometimes we can learn some parts of how they would say words by what happens when they're in a song and they're supposed to rhyme with something, or have
Yeah,
certain
that
kind
is
of
really
meaning.
interesting when
So,
that happens.
yeah, there's some really interesting ways you can get to what their speech was like, and I think it was, in some places, extremely different. The homogenization, the cosmopolitan nature of our society today has changed speech patterns a great deal. And so the regionality of speech is getting lost. And it was, if anything, in the 18th century, much, much more regionalized and specific, at least in certain places.
It's funny to think about that. With the regionality thing, the approximate rhyme does clue you in. So, like, the approximate rhyme that you would use in a country song would not work in a pop song.
Right.
If it's like an ire versus air kind of sound, right?
Sure.
So that's really interesting.
Are there any books that teach mathematics of the 18th century, or has mathematics, science, English, etc. changed since then? Love the content and keep it up.
Well, I mean, math doesn't change, right? I mean, maybe I guess techniques, things like rule of three, and different sort of techniques are being used in the 18th century than would be used today in the instruction of mathematics. There are many different educational books that were printed in the time period that we have access to, so that we can see what learning was like in the 18th century, especially maybe not nearly as much in the early childhood years, because that is generally done on a chalkboard and just person to person. But as we get up into the higher educational situations where books are more used for that, all those books are available, and they can be very illuminating to it's like, they were trying to teach people how to do it this way. How did that ever work? And there's a lot, as we go through the 18th century, that idea of self-learning and books that are teaching different topics really comes into the fore. And so, the difference between the amount of books that are available on sort of this topic specifically, education, and sort of learning, not just the science of education, but the doing of education, it's changing a great deal from 1700 to 1800. So you can certainly find some very interesting mathematical books for the time period.
What's the best/hardest thing about running the Townsends company?
Ooh. I'm really interested to hear this answer myself.
Working with Ryan, right? That answers both of them.
Seeing my face every morning.
Is that the best part of the hard?
Best
Hands
slash
down the best.
best slash
We were
worst.
covering the
It's
hardest.
the
And I
same
think
thing.
that was the answer. No.
No.
I think probably the trickiest thing for me is to be able to balance, telling myself, no, I can't do a certain thing all the time. It's like, I personally want to do X project. And then I have to actually, it's like, oh, I can't afford to do X project. I can't saddle, what we do with the extravagance of whatever, project it is, like making a crazy dugout canoe, or hey, let's build a log cabin. Except sometimes I do that.
We did that one time.
What about
I could do both those
what about the best thing?
I work with an amazing group of people.
Thank you.
Well,
Ryan got what he wanted.
I didn't expect that. I mean,
Well, and
I knew that I'm great,
and
but-
I mean that from a lot of different points of view, whether it's employees, friends, people that we work with in the industry, and people online.
yeah, all jokes aside, that's really cool.
He goes, no, I didn't mean people who work here. I meant people that we've done
Did not
projects
say that.
I just
just
said
wanted
all
to
jokes aside.
expand the scope, because that's what I
Yeah.
really mean.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about doing a collaboration with Cowboy Kent Rollins on YouTube?
Ooh.
Have we thought about it? Yes,
Yeah, we've thought about it.
and may have.
We've thought about it. They're going to have to wait.
Who knows?
They're going to have to wait and see.
Maybe sometime we will do something just like that.
Do you have any tips for using quills and such when you're left-handed?
John's left-handed.
Get used to having ink all over you. I mean, Brian Allison was left-handed. He did a great job. He didn't even do the. I don't know. Did he?
I feel like he was like above he had his hand curved so it was above the line.
Maybe.
It was strange, but
Maybe
it worked.
it's a personal technique for each person. So.
Right backwards.
Yeah, they just learn how to.
There you go. Hey, John, between the reenactment and the show, how do you balance between being accurate / educational and being entertaining?
I never do. I try to be entertaining?
Loaded
We
question.
don't really focus on that.
I ignore entertainment and think if that comes naturally, then wow, that's really good.
I think for the people who watch our stuff, the content itself is what's entertaining.
Yeah,
It's like
right.
Yeah.
you don't have to try to make
Well, back in the day,
it.
right?
Okay, yeah.
So
Okay, yeah.
Crimson Bond, that's trying to be entertaining, right?
But still, when we have roundtables and we're like, okay, these are the videos we want to shoot. What do we want to do? It's never what will make people glued to their seat and excited or
Yeah.
entertained. It's how can we make this content the best and how
Yeah.
can we make it look the best?
Yep.
So, trying to be strictly entertaining, that is so far down the list that we don't even talk about it.
Well, because for some people, a video on building a cabin is not entertaining,
Right.
but for a lot of people, that's the coolest thing ever.
I don't know. It was shot more entertaining than
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't cover. We didn't do log cabin like here's step 1, here's step
Right,
2, here's
right.
step 3.
Well,
That's true,
There
that's
is the
true.
push-pull, right? Sometimes it's like, okay, do we hone in and focus on the information, or do we give them information and make it look really visually striking or best we can?
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely like, how do we play with this and have fun with it? But I still don't think that it's like entertainment focused.
That's a
Yeah.
really good question.
yeah,
Actually.
it's
I haven't really thought of that.
I think it's more about making it real
yeah.
than entertaining.
As long as it's good,
Yeah.
then it's good.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
Did they grow or sell flower bouquets only to the wealthy people for decoration?
I don't know if it's necessarily just for wealthy people, but it depends on what we talk about wealthy. So I was, in some senses, yes. And if you want to know topics like that, you look for the cries of London, and there's other cries of other cities, and you'll find all these series of paintings. We saw the one about cat food, right? They're selling cat and dog food on the street. So same thing, you're going to see lots of, or at least some, flower sellers and all sorts of strange things that people are walking down the street and trying to sell. That is a very 18th century, even though we might think we've got connections with that with 19th century, like movies that are covering that. You'll see that in a lot of it's like Hollywood things, but that's very true for the 18th century. And they look like, well, I mean, the painters are probably picking out specifically characters, but I think they were characters.
Did women make quilts in the 18th century? If so, what type?
Yeah, they were quilting, so they did quilted fabric. So sometimes the quilting is the actual stitching that is stitching that's going around inside the thing, and they had quilted clothing and they had quilted blankets. The idea of patch quilting is there's a little bit of some of that like crazy quilt kind of thing going on in the 18th century. Not a lot, not as nearly as much of that putting together of patterns in the fabric as just quilting patterns on 2 pieces of fabric with a liner on the inside.
Would we be down with a couple donations?
Oh yeah.
I only have a few just to we just get them out of the way real quick.
Sure.
And then we'll move on. History with Brad, thank you. It says homesick. Thank you for the content. Feel better. It's going around for sure.
Yeah.
Jerry Drake, thank you. And then Keltoid5 says, just got a copy of a 13th century Middle Eastern cookbook. See what you started. I hope you're happy.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
that sounds like a lot of
13th
fun.
That's
century.
nice.
There's some fun. There's like the Apicius that you can look at that was printed in the 18th century that's covering early English cookery and there a Latin or Roman cooking. There's a lot of interesting cookery books for early stuff. So, well, I can't remember when we were talking about money. Did we talk about money and the equivalency a couple of weeks ago?
Well, it normally comes up, and probably in the Detroit thing, it normally comes up when we're going down.
Right. So we had a question that had to do with paper money, coin money in North America, blah, blah, blah. I was reading here in this Letters and Journals. This is 1774, and Philip Vickers Fithian is down in Virginia, and he's writing, and he borrows some money. He says he borrows 15 shillings from Ben Carter. I have plenty of money with me, but it is in bills of Philadelphia currency and will not pass at all here. I thought that was a real interesting little piece. I was just, reading along, and you'll do that with these. You read like 20, 30 pages, nothing. It's like, oh, that's interesting, okay. And then all of a sudden you'll read a little piece like that. It's like, oh yeah, there he is talking about how, wouldn't that be weird? You travel, 100 miles, go to some other cities, like, oh, your money's no good here. That isn't real money. There's another piece here where he's talking about eating breakfast. He's from that Philadelphia area. He's in Virginia, and he says, supped on chocolate and hoe cake, so called because it's baked on a hoe before the fire. So obviously hoe cake in Philadelphia, never heard of it, don't know what they're talking about, but in Virginia it's an everyday thing, and you're eating chocolate with your cornbread kind of hoe cake thing. What was this one? There was one more thing here. I think it was, what they're drinking. We cover drinks a lot here in the tavern. This is, I think it's January, something like that. So it's in that festive time of year, and he's at a ball. For drink, there were several sorts of wine, a good lemon punch, toddy, you get that? Right? Oh, he's not even paying attention.
I am.
Cider and porter. So he's at a dance, and they've got lots of fun drinks, and he does some dancing, and they talk about the dances, they talk about the music. Great journal. I'm ready, Kyle, for a few more questions.
Okay. How did trade and commerce change post 1776?
Yeah. It's whenever you've got, war years. So post 1776, if you're talking about until, 1783, boy, all the commerce people tend to be anti-war because they want the war to stop and they want to be able to make money again, because once the war is happening, getting trade goods to go places without getting them, privateers attacking them or the military attacking them on the high seas, because it would be like, you're driving a tractor trailer rig and it's like, oh, pull over, I'm taking all your stuff, that would be really hard to deal with. So generally that sort of bottles up commerce, except for the very few people who are willing to risk it, and high rewards, but very, very risky situation. As soon as the war ends, trade is definitely strained between Great Britain and the United States. And, you hear there's some of that is specifically because of trade restrictions by the governments, and sometimes that's just plain, I don't want to do business with them anymore. So, the classic is, we're not going to drink tea anymore because it's coming from Great Britain, and that's part of the issue. So there's definitely some massive changes in trade that's going on in that time period, and those would be really interesting studies to look at, say, like newspaper advertisements, seeing what people are advertising, selling before the time period, during it, and after. It would be a great study.
How was an old single pen log cabin typically furnished?
Well, if you read a lot of accounts, they are barely furnished. One of the difficult things about interpreting that is that the people who tend to write about the furnishing of what's going on in the cabin have a bone to pick, or they're exaggerating. So Charles Wood Mason is traveling in the backcountry of South Carolina, and he talks about the people that are living there, and he doesn't think too much about them. He has a very poor opinion of these folks, and so he's going to exaggerate how he describes where they live, how they live, etc. A similar situation is the multiple descriptions, and I just got done all that research for oatcake. Many of those things led to the descriptions of how normal people are living in Scotland, and how those lower class folks were living, and they would describe the interiors of these places. But again, they are, for lack of a better word, prejudiced to those situations. They're going to exaggerate the poorness, or maybe not. So it's hard to know from how typical the author, how much they're exaggerating. But generally, they talk about very, very, very simple and very few furnishings inside of a structure like a single pen cabin.
So real quick before we get to the last
Yes,
bit, do you have some Patreon folks that you want to talk about?
I do.
Okay.
Let's cover Patreon really quick. And we've had a bunch of new Patreon folks that help support us on the channel. Patreon is one of those wonderful ways that is a direct support for what we do. There is there's wonderful indirect support for what we do, just watching the videos, right? But some people say, boy, I want to help them make videos. And let me tell you, it makes it possible. So we have people who support us on Patreon. That site is set up so that people can give each month a very small quantity. So it's like, $2 or $5 or whatever. And you can choose it really any amount you want. New Patreon people this week: Alex Roussos, Petra Gertz, Ryan Mercer, Madeline Welsh, Tamra Benton, Brian Prey, Michael Lanzer, and Heidi Hillhouse. Those are the new Patreon people. Some people like to also help us out with just like a one-time, here's, whatever. Again, you get to choose whatever. PayPal. And a new PayPal person this week was Stephen Carson. And that is probably, especially for those one-time things, just best bang for the buck. Doesn't have very much overhead. So it all goes to helping us make videos. So special thanks to all those folks who support us that way. People also support us by buying fun things that kind of connect with the channel. So here's one of the Nutmeg Tavern mugs. And this particular one is the Stag Nutmeg Tavern mug. We sold out of those at Christmas. We had a few. Those are gone, but we do have some of the Boar's Head ones.
Hey, John.
There's one over there.
It's not the right color, but it's the...
Well, it's not even the right shape, but
It's got the
Boar's Head Tavern mug. They're this shape and this color, has this Boar's Head emblem on it, and there are a few of those, and I think there's some turquoise ones, or what are they called? Teal? Peacock, that's the word.
Peacock and moss.
Some of those available also. I think, are you putting a link in
Link in the chat.
So that's another way people, it's like, ooh, I want a thing and I want to help support them
We
at
had
the
a
same time.
last one small selection that came in late, and we would
Yeah.
really love to unload them, so go get them.
Unload them. I love these things.
I want to sell them. I want people
Ryan
to
had
have
one.
them.
Ryan had his own personal one at one point, and I can't remember what happened to it.
Josh sold it.
Josh,
right out from underneath
I
him.
literally had my day's coffee. I was drinking coffee out of it.
He's like,
And,
here you
and
go.
I left it up front on the counter, and a customer said, I like that. And I said, that's mine. And Josh dumped my coffee out, and he sold it to the person without washing it.
Josh saw money. He jumped on it.
It was
Now,
one of
that's
my
an
favorite-
Josh
employee
helped
right
me
there.
out today, though. He was helping me out with a project today, so he did a good job.
Josh always does. He did a good job selling that coffee mug.
Yeah, he did. It just is funny. We still
I don't
talk
know
about
though. I mean, he was talking to those folks from Centerville today, and I was like, Josh, I think he had stolen my Madeira.
That's why Josh gets locked in the back room.
You just finished your Madeira.
I know. I just finished it.
Good to the last drop?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right. Were there any religious scholars besides the clergy for a town's church? How common were they? Anybody else?
Is this like Stump John or something?
Oh yeah. It's my goal.
I'm not sure how to answer it. I would say, but because I don't know, right?
Maybe Parson John's in the chat.
Ooh,
Maybe.
Yep.
I think you're definitely going to find that happening, and sometimes vice versa, right? There are occasions where, especially in the established church in the 18th century, you could sort of buy your way into the clergy in a certain extent. And there were some folks that they were very complained about, that they weren't all that knowledgeable about their vocation. And then there are other people that sort of are just the opposite of that in the 18th century.
Frank and Carol said they were there to see it happen with the mug. I forgot they were sitting at the
that's
table.
right.
Yeah.
So we're not telling a lie. They backed it up.
There you go.
Parson John and Maggie say lots of pamphlets and books.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of religious education going on, and a lot of thought and movement in that topic in the time period.
I wanted to ask, what kind of non-alcoholic drinks were popular in the 18th century?
Well, against common, kind of common belief, water was very popular. Obviously, people are drinking milk. They're drinking different kinds of, quick juices occasionally. There's tea, there's coffee, there's chocolate. Those are the biggies. Then people will drink things like vinegar, and buttermilk was one of those things that people are drinking. So I mean, that's what's coming to mind immediately. Anything pop into your head?
I know that there's lemonade is happening.
Right,
that
lemonado
kind
and
of
orangeado.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
A lime was a really popular juice to drink, more so than it is now.
I like lime better than
Yeah.
Interesting. Was there any types of fashion issues for men which were considered to be bad taste or inappropriate?
Oh, well, there's definitely the fashion.
Yeah, I think like walking
it?
outside without your waistcoat
Well,
on.
yeah,
or
I mean
stuff like
that's
that,
classic.
Or,
I mean,
or are they just talking about like fashion faux pas?
yeah. Well, there's definitely some of that, but none of that's coming to my head. There's certainly what's appropriate to wear outdoors in a public situation. You don't have a hat on?
Yeah.
What happened to you? Even in your house, you might wear a little cap, like the work cap that I wear a lot of times in the kitchen. You're gonna wear a hat. There's things like you don't just walk around in your shirt unless you're actively hard at work. You've got a waistcoat on, and more likely you've even got some kind of a jacket or coat on. That's just appropriate wear, and just normal people don't wear that. Are you wearing trousers early on? Those are work clothes. Hard work clothes are not to be worn just out and about, unless of course maybe you're a sailor and somebody might confuse you with and even then sailors are probably wearing that on board ship, not necessarily their shore going outfit. It depends on the time period on that. Trousers start to become popular in the late 18th century. So there are things like that really need to be thought of. And do you have a neck stock on? Do you have a cravat on? It's like you don't have a neck stock on. You don't have a tie on.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really being appropriate in a public situation, and so you would not be in undress like that. And in military situations, if you let people just walk around like soldiers in a situation, you let them walk around in their small clothes. It's probably a special occasion, probably very, very hot, or they've worked extra hard or whatever, and you're going to let them not wear their extra heavy special uniform coat.
So funny.
Okay.
Just the taboos at the time,
Yeah.
like no hat.
Yeah, what do you mean? You don't have a hat on? What happened to you?
Compared to now.
Yeah.
Okay. This question might take a minute to answer, so here we go. This one says, "Hey, you guys are great. First time I've seen the live stream live. I know it's not about cats, but I was wondering if you know any books about the 18th century ship construction, sails, rigging. Thank you."
There is a whole series of anatomy of a ship books. Most of them are military ships, and there are some not military ships, but were used in military services, transports and whatnot. Alert 1777, Blandford. There's a bunch of those anatomy of a ship books, and they're made for modelers, but they are so good. The book has both artwork of the ship, it has models that existed in the time period, and many models, at least hull half models, were made of ships, so you knew exactly what the different profiles at the front and the back and the middle were, and how the ribs were shaped, rigging concepts. And then the interior of the book will have the person who wrote it goes through and just basically fills out the entire concept of the ship, all the rigging, all the guns, all the boats, all that kind of good stuff. So it's a whole giant series of them. Look for that anatomy of a ship books. If I've got that name wrong, search for something like Alert 1777, and I can't remember the date for the Blandford book, but they go through 17th century, a lot of 18th century ships, and some probably in the early 19th century. And you can get to see, if you get various books, then you can really see the evolution of ship design through the time period. Excellent book series. There's another great book if you're interested in just the boats, which I'm particularly interested because, of course, I can't build a ship. I can't build a 20-gun, 6th rate frigate or something like that. But I can maybe build a ship's boat, and there's a great book about men of war boats for ships in the time period. And again, even just the boats, the gigs and the pinnacles and the barges and whatnot of the time period. So a big military ship might have 4 or 5 or even 6 kind of smaller boats that they would use to go ashore. They were in graduated sizes, and there were even profiles of those through the time period. So there's a lot of great research to dig up on that.
Real quick, I meant to do this earlier. Today is Sue O'Connor's birthday.
Hey, happy birthday.
She's always in the chat. We appreciate her. And
Happy birthday,
She's a
Sue.
Patreon person too. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, happy birthday. Yep. Can I get a few donations in?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd probably go out on that.
Yeah, it's about that time. All right. Thanks, everyone, again, for donating. Super helpful. We really appreciate it. Rylan Reese, thank you. It says, good timing. Received my package today and excited to use with my Traditions Kentucky Flintlock rifle kit.
Oh, yeah.
Working on creating a mountain man character. That's awesome. David Dinelli, thank you. Very interesting stream today. David Lee, thank you. Mike Crook, thank you. We take care of feral cats like many have for centuries. They're so fun and help with pests, connecting to history by caring for some if you have some in your neighborhood. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. Do we have anything specific we need to cover here at the end?
I don't think so.
Cool video coming out
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday's video. Shot it out in the cabin.
Yeah.
It was cold again.
Well, John was particularly hyped on this topic. I think you've been rolling this around in your head for a
I'm
while.
hyped on them all. What are you talking
I'm just saying,
about?
this one, I think that you've been really rolling around for a while.
Well, I really enjoyed the oatcakes one.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Shoot, that one
that
already
was
came
last
out, didn't
week. That was
it?
last
Never mind.
week.
John hated this video.
No, I did not hate this one. I was kind of surprised by this one. It was a bit of a okay, and started digging on it. And like all topics, if you really start to dig on it, it's like, oh, this is actually interesting. Sometimes you think, this is kind of bored. boring or it's a simple topic. And it's like, no, this Monday is going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. Excited for everyone to see it. And thanks for watching the last video. That one did really well. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, there's a topic that reminds me. We're at the end of the live stream, or almost at the end of the live stream. And last week we talked about that idea of what happens to the live streams after a week.
Yeah.
We got a lot of feedback. Thank you for the feedback on that. And I think that we should build a channel for the archived live streams that's separate. You guys okay with that? I see online. See, what I'm doing is I'm doing this online so that if they say no, you can yell at them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
What do you-
bother me one bit.
what do you think,
so
guys?
no is fine with me.
How about let's talk about that off camera.
I don't care if people are mad at me for saying that.
I'm for you guys, okay?
A man of the people.
I'm gonna try to get it through everyone's heads that I think this is a good idea.
Ryan and I with our corporate interests.
Oh man.
I'm with you, John. Let's do it.
Oh,
Okay.
get out of here. Okay, let's go. You guys have a good
Here
weekend.
we go.
So, I'm gonna do my best to make that happen. If I can get it, past these grumpy guys.
He's our
who-
boss. And he's like,
Please, guys,
yeah,
please.
this is not good.
I just want them to take some heat, okay? That's all there is to
Yeah.
it.
By me.
It is tremendous to be able to work with all of you on what we do here on this channel. And every one of you, especially, you're here in the live stream, you participate in what we do. You help make what I do possible by just watching our videos, commenting, sharing our videos, especially sharing our videos. I mean, I hear so often, it's like, oh, I showed them to my mother or, friends at work, or even funny is when, it's like, oh, I tried to, get my friend to, watch the channel and they already knew about it. That's always funny. And
I
then-
just got a text from a friend during the live stream that I didn't know watched, and he has a white pot in the oven right now. That was pretty nice.
The connections are so interesting, and I'm always just flabbergasted by it. So thank you for everything you do. Special thanks to the folks that help us out on Patreon, PayPal. You buy mugs. Again, that is a direct support for making videos happen, and we've got lots of fun stuff planned. So thanks for helping us out. Thank you guys today, and have a great weekend.